Brock, welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, John. Appreciate you having me. I love what you're doing. This is awesome.
This
Seriously,
is this is going to be a
learning
fun
about this
chat,
is
man.
cool.
I think Jonathan, shout out to Jonathan who connected us. He sent me a clip, and it was he said this guy, he lives your value of Front Row Dads. Johnny, he's a family man with a business, not a businessman with a family. And I watched this short clip. I'm like, yep, we need to talk. So I'm excited about this. Let's begin at the core of you as a man, and I want to go back in your life. Tell me about the relationship you had or didn't have with your dad. Where did it begin in your world, having a father or father figure? As I don't know your story there.
Yeah, for sure. It started right from the get-go. I'm come from a family where there's six of us, five boys and one girl. Middle America, meaning my dad's a psychologist, my mother's an elementary school teacher, so not a lot of money. But kind of two things that were kind of ever present with my dad. Number one was sports. All of us competed in a bunch of different sporting events, and
What was your
he,
sport?
I played soccer and football.
Yeah.
My love is football, but I played soccer through college, and I loved it more when I was younger than I do now. But I was the youngest, and the five older brothers, man, you're fighting and scrapping every single day to compete and like be on the field, or be on the court or wherever it is. And
You still compete with him?
yeah, it's a little more friendly now than it was then, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot more respect and whatnot, but we had some bloodbaths, man, with
Yeah.
five boys. And
Did you ever
anyways,
get
right,
really hurt? Did you ever get really hurt? Broken
I
bone?
did get really hurt. I got my tooth knocked out once on the
Oh,
basketball court.
that's a blow
And
right there.
yeah, I mean, there we battled.
Yeah.
And so, but my dad was always there. He was always, taking us to the local gym to go get some shots up, or in the backyard, or throwing the football, and really sacrificed a lot to come to my games. And I had a lot growing up. And then the second thing that kind of meant the most to me, and probably to today has kind of ingrained who I am, is every Saturday. I hated it at the time, but we were forced to do yard work. And so I spent a lot of time in the yard, with my dad, and we had a decent sized kind of piece of land. And so whether it was mowing the lawn or weeding or painting, or, I mean, whatever it was, I was always out there with my dad. And he normally, on every Saturday, we'd go and we'd do that, but then he'd take me to, the local McDonald's or whatever, and we'd
Yeah.
go, burger or whatever for lunch. And so when I kind of left the house, those were things that I didn't appreciate at the time, but I look back and just fond memories. He taught me how to work and was there, by my side and taking me to lunch and some of those things. So those
Do
are
you
some
still
of
do
my,
yard work?
yeah, I do.
You do?
I do. Not as much as I did back then, but I still like getting out on a Saturday mowing the lawn.
Yeah.
But that's, I don't like weeding and some other things like that, but I do love the freshly cut grass. And so yeah, I still mow my own lawn.
That's awesome, man. That's cool. Tell me about your kids.
Yeah, so we have four kids, one boy and three girls. The oldest is Jackson, he's 15, and then Ellie and Jane and Mia, 13, 11, and 6. And they're just a blast. Jackson is, he loves everything that I love, which is awesome. I'm so fortunate from that perspective, because he's like my best friend, and
Oh, that's
I
cool.
coach him in football and coach him in all of his different sports. And the girls, one of them's a dancer. She's uber talented, has incredible drive. The next one is into soccer and just really artistic. And then the youngest, Mia, is just like, she's just a little, she's a firecracker. She has, the rest of us wrapped around her finger and kind of gets whatever she wants, and is into dancing and singing and
Heard
all
that
those
story
kind of fun
before.
things,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Yeah.
cool.
So
You grew up would you say you grew up in a religious home?
Yeah, no question. We typical members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so Mormons, right? And it's interesting. My mother grew up in Portland and was not religious, and she grew up in a single mom household, and her dad had gone to war and had some kind of PTSD and got into alcohol and was a little bit abusive and ended up leaving my mom and her mother on their own. And my mom didn't, because of that, she had this like she couldn't stand alcohol and or any sort of like influence from drugs or anything like that. And she was uber poor. They didn't, her mom made minimum wage, so they barely had enough money to basically pay for their rent. So she had to work her whole life and put herself through school. She made her own prom dress. I mean, just a lot like those stories where, I mean, they didn't have a car, just so on the poverty line, and she wanted to go to college. She had been the first person in her family to go to college, and she was going to go somewhere local, but wasn't excited about it. And a friend of hers was going to go down to BYU, to Brigham Young University. And the only thing she heard it was a good school, and she heard that they don't drink and smoke and other things like that. So she's like, that's the place I want to be.
Yeah.
So she went down to BYU, and while she was there, she kind of studied, both the Bible and the Book of Mormon, and just felt, this incredible conversion spirit, and she was converted. She met my dad, and they were married, and so I was born into that household, and it's a big part of kind of who I am. Just and the principles of, loving people and being kind of grateful and some of those things that, and being industrious, like working hard, or like really born into who I am, the way I was raised, and that. Yeah, I'm grateful for my parents and what they instilled in me since I've been young.
What does the Blake family name mean to you?
Well, two things. Um, my internet said I was stable. You hear me okay?
Yeah, maybe. Well,
You still got good audio?
Yeah, you were breaking up a little bit. Let's make sure that everything's closed down. We'll cut this part out. Let me just make sure that everything's shut down for us, so we're not sucking up any unnecessary bandwidth. And then let me just ask that question again.
I'm gonna quit some of these other things as well. So I'm at our office, which I normally never have internet problems, but it just told me that it was unstable. So hopefully, are we good now?
No problem. We're good.
Is it coming through okay now?
Yeah. Let me just rephrase that question, then we'll pick back up. All right. So what does the Blake family name mean to you?
Man, ever since I was a kid, my dad's dad, my grandpa Blake, he's been a hero of mine, and he always said a phrase: "Remember who you are. You're a Blake." And that's actually something that means a whole lot to me. My license plate is RWYA, and no one really knows what it means, but that's what it means. Remember who you are. And so being a Blake is. My grandpa was the mayor in his town. He had this small little town for like 20 years, and they named the town park after him. And he was just always like, just dealt, just giving and like cared for people. Like everyone knew who he was because of the way he took care of people. And so between my mom and her story of kind of, coming out of poverty and overcoming a lot of really difficult challenges, and my dad teaching me how to work, my grandpa, it just an immense amount of pride to be a Blake, and we're a very close family, and we're competitive, but we have a lot of respect for each other. So it's a real honor, and it really means something for me to live up to that name, and make sure I'm making the family proud by what I do.
I posted recently, a couple questions about your family and what your father, like, this is just like an open question to my friends on Facebook. Like, tell me about the greatest, influence that your father had on your life. And it's so fascinating to me how much of it was just about how they watched their father interact with other people. That was at the core of the answers. Like, if there was a theme, that definitely showed up of like, I watched my father interact with people. I watched how kind my father was to other people. I just talked with my buddy, Jeremy, who lost his dad this year. And he was telling me about, I asked him, what are some of your fondest memories about your dad? And he talked about, even right at the very end, when his dad was in the hospital fighting for his life, how kind he was to the nurses, how kind he was to the doctors, how accepting he was of his circumstances, which were, at the moment, they didn't know how much time he would have, and it turned out he didn't have much time at all. But that how he behaved in the world was a recurring theme. Yeah. On that note, Brock, I wanted to talk to you about how Mormons behave in the world, right? And I think what's really cool about this is that, first of all, I love the Mormon religion, and I remember being in New Jersey one time. I would say, even just like, I was probably in my late 20s, and I had so many cool experiences where I'd meet a Mormon and they were just the coolest person. And I remember being in my apartment, and these two guys knock at the door, and I look out the little peephole, and I'm like, it's Mormons. I was like so fired up. I opened the door. I'm like, guys, come on in. Tell me everything you want to tell me. Like, just sat down and talked. And that's a true story. And I really do feel that way. It's like how I feel about my Canadian friends. I'm like, all my friends from Canada are just incredible people. It's good to have that reputation, I feel. So what I want to get to specifically is the part of the Mormon religion that inspires me tremendously is your mission trips and what you do there, and that tradition, that ritual, that culture of going out into the world and having this adventure. I want to hear about yours. And I also know this ties into the genesis for Lendio, which I want to get to also.
Yeah, so I was fortunate. I chose to go serve a mission, and usually when you say you're willing to serve, you receive an assignment, a calling to be able to go to a certain area of the world, and you have no influence over where that is. And I was assigned to serve in Uruguay, and I didn't know anything about Uruguay at the time, but it's basically, down in South America, and it's a great country, amazing country, but very poor, and people are just the kindest people you'll ever meet. They'll give you, you always hear they'll give you the shirt off their back. They will. And I lived in some very unique scenarios where I was, in cinder block home with tin roofs, and it was 110 degrees outside with 100, and it was just like burning hot. And some of the people I served, they had dirt floors and things like that. But really the goal is twofold: is really to serve the people, and then to teach about Christ, and invite people to we basically to commit to an opportunity to improve what we believe that it'll bring blessings to your life, right, as you commit to it. And so you go and teach, and you serve, and you plant seeds, and you talk to people, and you help people, and that's your whole for 2 years. And you give up everything. You sacrifice, your time. I was at BYU, and I was playing soccer, and I was, and you have a girlfriend and whatnot. You leave everything behind. You leave your family behind, and you go out and serve, and you really find yourself. I mean, you really kind of it's a time where you learn how to love people. You learn about culture. You learn about hard work. You learn like you really like test yourself. Is this something that you really believe in? Because if you're out there for 2 years and you day by day and you've sacrificed everything, it tests you pretty quick of whether this is something that you believe is true. And what is amazing through that experience is to watch people change as they start to. And I love just seeing people's lives change, whether the decisions they make to give up smoking or give up whatever it is, whatever vice it is, and to dedicate more to their family. And there's just principles that are part of kind of that we teach that I believe bring happiness, whether you're religious or not. If you're a family man, or if you give up some of the vices, if you are dedicated to service, those principles will bring you peace. And to see people change their lives was just an incredible experience, and one that I'll cherish forever, because of it's really kind of shaped who I am as a person.
Yeah. Brock, let's pause real quick. Your internet still is struggling, I can see.
Great about that. Let me see if I can disconnect from Wi-Fi and connect to a landline. Give me a second.
Cool.
This is not.
Let me just hit record here. Charlie, we'll need to, if there's anything that's just really terrible, we can cut it out. I think we'll have plenty of stuff here to talk about still that'll make for a great show. And I think we won't miss a beat.
All right. Sorry about that.
No, all good, man. So let's just pause for a second, then we'll go. So Brock, first of all, I have to know, just because I'm personally curious, how many moments, and maybe one of the moments, if you could share it, where you wanted to quit the mission trip? Like, what was the bottom of the experience for you where you wanted to go home? What'd that look like?
Yeah, there were so many. I mean, right from the get-go, I flew down to Uruguay. I got there, one night in a really nice home with the mission president, and they're welcoming you and a great meal. And then I got on a bus and drove 8 hours up to the north part of Uruguay. And I was living with, my companion was from Chile, and he didn't speak English. And we were living with a family from Uruguay that didn't speak English. I hardly spoke any Spanish. And we were living in like this porous little house. And I remember there was two things that happened like the first week. First of all, we got there in July, which here it was like 100 degrees, but down there it was cold. And there's no snow. And so I thought, oh, it's not going to be that cold. And then I live in Utah and I'm used to the snow, but it's 100% humidity. And so like 45 degrees just felt like it was the cold. Like I just wasn't used to that. So I couldn't and we didn't have like central heating system. And so I didn't know in Uruguay, the shower heads, the heater, the hot water comes into the shower head, it heats up in the shower head, and then it falls down. So you have to actually turn on the shower head. And I didn't know that. I was turning the knobs, to try and figure out like how to get
Wim Hof would have been proud.
Yeah. And I couldn't figure out how to get the water to go warm. And so for like 4 days, I was taking freezing cold showers, and I just could not get warm.
Yeah.
And
little did you know how good it was for you. Now, though,
seriously,
pursue those cold baths. Yeah.
I was trying to communicate to my companion. I was like, Frio,
Yeah.
agua, Frio, and he's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, the water, trying to tell him that the water's cold. And
Yeah.
he's like, it's not cold. And he just came in and showed me how to like flip the electric, shower
Yeah.
head and turn it on. And then that same week I tried to, cook a batch of chocolate chip cookies for the family that we were staying with to be, kind. And I ate some of the cookie dough with the eggs and I got salmonella.
Oh my God.
And so I was horribly sick and I was freezing cold and no one spoke English. And it was just, I was like,
Now at
there's
this
no
point,
way
how
I'm
old
gonna
are you?
last. I'm 19.
All right. So before that, had you been exposed to rough conditions like that, earlier in life? Yeah. Do you think that it's good to expose your kids to that stuff earlier than when they go on or maybe accept a mission like that? Do you think it's good to find discomfort at younger ages?
For sure.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago, I took my son down to Puerto Rico to do after the hurricane down there, and we basically helped them bring in solar lights because they didn't have any electricity, and we brought in water filtration systems, and to be able to go into these towns and help him see, how these people live and the
Yeah.
conditions in which they live, and it was an amazing experience for my son and I to go through and have that. And yeah, I wish I would have had that opportunity before, but I was, a spoiled punk teenager that probably wouldn't have, cared to do that anyway. I don't want to go to Mexico and serve or whatever, but it was an amazing experience for my son and me to be able to go through.
Tell us the genesis story of Lendio and how does that tie into the mission trip?
Well, Lendio, yeah, I mean, we've gone through so many different iterations and pivot. My entrepreneur career started back right out of school, and I won a competition, an entrepreneurial competition, kind of like the TV show The Apprentice. It wasn't
Yeah.
with Donald Trump saying you're fired, but I won $50,000 and I could use that to go and start any business. And I was talking to a lot of different
Wait a
businesses.
minute. What'd you do to win? What was your
Well,
idea?
there wasn't like a business kind of plan competition. I spent, it was 8-week boot camp, and every single week you had a competition. And so you had like a sales competition and a marketing competition and all these different events. And so
Yeah.
over the 8 weeks, just like The Apprentice, you go through and you compete.
That's cool.
And then at the end, they chose 5 of us and gave us each $50,000 to start a business.
Killer, man.
Yeah, it was fun. So as I was talking to other businesses and asking, trying to figure out, should I buy a business? Should I start a business? What should I do with this? Most of the business owners that I spoke to, their biggest challenge was getting access to capital. So we realized there's a really big opportunity here that we can solve. And at first we were trying to connect entrepreneurs to investors. So private angels and venture capitalists, angel investors, venture capitalists. And we spent, 5 years at that, banging our head against the wall, making every mistake in the book. But eventually, we kind of pivoted and came up with the concept of Lendio after 5 years of kind of working on what my previous business. And so it wasn't necessarily the exact genesis from my mission, just that this desire to do good in the world and give back and help people was kind of ingrained into who I am. And I wanted to not just start another widget business. I wanted to do something that had an impact. And for us, we call it fueling the American dream. That, like, helping business owners get money and hearing how you help their business grow and expand, and how you save jobs and how the impact you had on the lives of these people is a big part of kind of who we are.
When COVID hit this year, you guys were in a position to serve, but you also scaled up really fast, like hundreds of people in weeks.
Yep.
And you talk, I remember reading about how you were grinding 20 hours a day for, I don't even know how long, but talk to us about that experience, because I can see, and I think we started to talk about this, but prior to recording, when you asked me about how Front Row Dads came to be, and I said it was like the never-ending season of like just one more book, just one more, season of speaking to get through, and I realized that it wasn't just a season. I became addicted to the busy seasons. So I know this is a struggle amongst our group of, I mean, how do I balance it? It said in one way or another, it's how do I balance business and family life? So, dude, you tackled that big time. How does your family not disown you after that period of abandoning them to your own work? Talk us through that.
Well, they should have disowned me for sure. But I think candidly, they were bought into the mission as well, meaning that
that's huge.
The pandemic hit, and they knew, they experienced it, right? They schools shut down, restaurants are normally used to going down, shut down, the sporting events and their activities shut down, and so they're experiencing this moment of like, this is super unique. I'm at home. I don't know if I can go out and play with my friends or or do any of those activities. And it happened overnight. The rug got pulled out from under us, and we decided we were going to go all in, meaning that we knew that every business owner in America could get access to a PPP loan, and that and we're not a lender ourselves, but we have hundreds of lenders on our platform, and we could develop technology to help the borrower apply and the lender to process the loan more efficiently. And it was a risk, and we didn't know what we were exactly getting ourselves into, but we said we're going for it. So we hired 250 new team members, and all kind of work from home environment, and spent 7,000 to 10,000 man hours developing the PPP loan application, and we jumped into it. And there was so much demand we had more demand in one weekend than we'd had seed in like the last 5 years combined. I mean, it was just crazy. And it wasn't just the fact that our application was getting so many business owners coming in. It was the fact that every person that owned a business that I've ever known in my entire life, from elementary school to college to, my congregation, to my neighbors and my cousins, friends, and my brothers, and everyone that had a business was calling and texting with this desperation, like, I need a PPP loan. My bank won't give it to me, or they haven't responded, or my bank doesn't offer PPP loans. I need your help. And if I don't get this by X date, I'm gonna have to lay off people. And so the anxiety was so high. It was everyone, every person saying, I need your help. And you don't want to let them down. You have this, and so it was basic kind of trying to communicate that to my wife and kids, like we're needed right now. And we changed our mission from fueling the American dream to saving the American dream, just like to save these businesses that were watching their business kind of slip through their fingers. Right. And so it was literally 10 times harder than anything I'd ever done in my career. And you talk about 20-hour days. I've never had an experience where, and we all can do 20-hour days, here and there, but I've never had an experience where the demand was so high for like 6 weeks straight, where there was literally no breaks. We barely had time to eat. We barely had time to shower. We barely had time to do anything. I was locked up. Just the enormous weight of like all we had to do that was totally built from scratch, like building all the lender technology and then processing all the loans and handling the customers and lenders that, we're trying to integrate with and work with, and that all had their own challenges and problems. And I know the podcast isn't about that. I could get so much deeper into, what the challenges were, but it was just this enormous weight. And So we did a couple of things during this time. I decided that I took my family down to St. George. We packed up, threw my desk and monitors and computer and my chair and everything in a trailer, and we drove down to southern Utah, and spent, my in-laws have a place down there. We spent 8 days down there, or at least maybe it was 10. I didn't see my family the whole time. I was holed up in a room there, working, but at least they gave them an out, and I would try and kind of sneak down and grab dinner with them for 15 minutes, but usually I'd get interrupted, and I mean it was a time unlike anything I've ever experienced before, and it definitely put a strain on my wife and kids. Specifically, I'll just say this one thing, and that is my wife. All of her friends were all like, "This is the best thing ever. I've never seen my husband more. He's here
Right.
for every meal,
Yeah.
for breakfast and dinner, and this is amazing." And Kim couldn't relate to that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's interesting, man. That's interesting. We could spend a lot of time talking about that specifically.
Oh yeah.
Right. That's a big one. Man, there's a lot here. One of the things I want to get to right away, you might be able to meet. I think this is my 6-year-old knocking. I want to introduce him to you. Hold on.
Nice.
I want to introduce you to my friend. Come here. I knew that was your knock. I knew that was your knock.
Hey.
This is my friend Brock. Let me put you on the speaker, Brock.
What's his name?
This is Ocean.
Ocean.
So yeah, here we go. Built-in output. There we go. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Brock, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Let me see if I can get you on here. All right. Try to say something now, Brock.
Hello? Testing.
There we go. That's Brock.
Yeah. Hey,
hi, sucker.
Hey, sucker.
You can't plan that. That's right. That's not how we say hi to our new friends. Hey,
nice.
I wanted you
to there.
I wanted you to say hi. But how about let's try that again. Say hi, Mr. Brock. Say hi, Mr. Brock. Can you say Mr. Brock, please? There we go. You're being silly. Hey, can you say goodbye?
See ya. Bye.
So I made a commitment,
there
Brock.
You go, dude.
I made a commitment that I wasn't gonna lock my door. This is a great. This sounds like a dangerous thing to commit to. Let me change my speaker back. There we go. So I made a commitment that I wasn't going to lock my door, like during this season, that I was going to just welcome interruptions and all the things that are unexpected. Like, what's up, sucker?
That was awesome.
No edits on that, Charlie. Leave that in.
Yeah,
leave that in. That's real life right there, folks. That's my 6-year-old son, Ocean.
Right.
But where was I going with this? Where was I going? Oh, there's a lot of places we can take this, but as you were speaking, there's something that hit me that I want you to address that I think I heard you say in another interview. And I'll tee this up by saying, and hopefully I'm getting it right. Somebody told you that you can either be a great dad or a great businessman, but you can't be both. There's just not enough time.
Yep.
Did I get that right?
That's right. Yep.
What's your take on that?
Yeah. So when we were first trying to raise a round, we had a term sheet from a very high profile investor in the Bay Area. This is a group that I would love to be able to work with. And we were basically trying to get the deal done. He flew in from San Francisco. We spent the day together. He loved what we were doing, our vision, of the business and everything. And so we had a break and we were going to lunch, and it was just the two of us. So we went to lunch, and it was kind of some of those get to know you questions. Tell me about, your life and your family and whatnot. And I told him at the time we had 2 kids, and I told him, I was married and have 2 kids and they mean the world to me and everything about them. And he said, let me ask you a question. And I was like, great, what's up? He's like, when the going gets tough, would you choose your family or the business? And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, well, here, let me give you some context. I've invested in a lot of companies and some incredible entrepreneurs and some incredible, fathers and I kind of have this personal philosophy that I don't really believe that you can be a great dad and husband and a great CEO. Like you could be like you could be really good number 2 or number 3 in the business or, but really you have to be able to choose. And, so I'm curious which one you would choose. And I had such a difficult time like accepting that. And in that moment, it just made my blood boil a little bit. And I realized I don't believe that. And this isn't the right business partner for me because I don't believe that. And he's had his own experiences that's taught him that, but it was kind of like in that moment, it had such an impact on me where I decided that I'm going to dedicate my life to being a great husband and father and a great CEO, and really not prove him wrong, but just prove that it can be done. And I realized that, and I'm not either yet. But it is kind of my life's mission to be able to build a great business that leaves a legacy that has an incredible culture and does great in the world. And financially, the financial scorecard is attractive as well.
Yeah.
But also have a great relationship with my wife and our kids and there are moments, there are busy seasons. But I just, and there are times where I made mistakes and we all do, where you just like regret, the choice you made, whether it was on either side of that. But the commitment is there and the effort is there. And candidly, you have to sacrifice other things to make those 2 things a priority. But I'm striving to be great at both.
If you were going to write the playbook, right? If you were going to write the rules behind, how to be a dad who wins in both areas, to shatter that belief that you have to choose between one or the other, what are 3 rules that show up in that book?
So first of all, I would say, and by the way, these rules, I don't want it to come across that I've got these nailed. These are just lessons that I've learned from
the practice,
right? But number 1 is be where your feet are. Meaning be present. And when you're at the office, man, I am just like dialed in. My calendar every single day from when I arrive to when I leave is completely booked, every minute of it. And that may be 30 minutes for email or 30 minutes for just, thinking time or project time or whatever, but it's like dialed in.
Know what you're doing.
Right. And then, and then at home, be where your feet are, like try and be present and try and put your phone down and sit at the dinner table and have conversation and, go to your, try and just be there. And now there are times where you can't do that. The things come up at work and you have to kind of step out, or, things come up at home but as much as you can, be where your feet are. I think secondly, I've learned over time, for me, I put together what I call my strategic calendar, meaning that I've mapped out what are the things that are most important to me. And I planned them accordingly. And you try not to sacrifice that time. So meaning, date night with my wife, or, kids games, or some things like that, where I'll sacrifice sleep, I'll sacrifice TV shows, movies, entertainment. I'll sacrifice a lot of other things so that I can be present for my kids or in that strategic calendar. And my day is pretty rigid. I mean, I wake up and I have a personal scripture study, meditation time. I get a workout in, kids off to school, get to work. I try and make it home for dinner. There's time with my kids, and then I'll get on later and catch up on email and other things like that. So I've really kind of mapped out this schedule to try and, be as effective and efficient with my time as possible.
Pause there for a sec, because I want to drill down into that real quick. I'm always fascinated with what time do you go to bed? How much sleep do you get? What time do you get up? And what's that morning routine look like for you? Just a little more detail there.
Yeah. So I wake up at 5 and I try and go to bed between 10:30 and 11.
You feel that's enough sleep?
No. I mean, I would like to have 6 to 8 hours a night.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's 6 and sometimes it's 8. But I try and catch up, like on a weekend, a Saturday,
or sleep in a little bit,
Sunday or something like that. But it is important. It's important for me to be able to get up and get a workout in, and it's like the time to do it. Right.
Work out at home.
I usually play morning basketball because I'm a competitive guy, and it's a really great workout. And I've got a weightlifting gym at my house as well, and then a lot of times my wife and I like to go on walks. Sometimes that's our time as well.
You play competitive basketball in the morning, like early, like 5?
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys around here. There's a few gyms that, it's like probably 30 guys. And so every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at we start about 5:15-ish.
No way.
Yeah.
Getting it done.
And some people, so you have somewhere between 10 and like 18 guys there. And it's good. It's a good morning workout.
You still play soccer at all?
I don't play as much soccer. No.
You play volleyball?
I play some volleyball, but mostly it's just morning basketball. I cycle, I mountain bike, I surf, and a bunch of stuff like that. But
where are you surfing?
I wake surf. So this place right here is Lake Powell. That's my happy place. Or I like to travel down to Southern California and other places.
When you come to Austin, we'll have to go wake surfing together, man. I got into it this year. It's so cool. Yeah.
Dude, that's my happy place. You get me on our boat and on a surfboard. It's my favorite.
That's killer. All right. Good. So, and do you meditate in the mornings?
Yeah.
Okay. And how long do you typically meditate for, and what type of meditation?
Well, usually it's about 30 minutes where it's a personal kind of spiritual time, right? Where I'm studying, and I'm a lot of times I'll write kind of in my journal, or even just some bullet points of some different thoughts, and then just time to really think. So it's not just like pure meditation, but it's spiritual upliftment for me each day to kind of start off my day.
It's cool. And then, all right, so great. Sorry to interrupt. I just had to get some of those details. What would be your third part of the playbook?
Oh man, those two things are probably the most important thing. And I probably say the third part would be try and involve my kids as much as I can into the business.
What does that look like?
So, have them know like what we do. I try and tell them stories. I try and come home when they ask about your day. Sometimes, I would just get in the habit of just being like, it was busy.
Right.
A lot of meetings. And I'm trying to get better at saying, well, in this meeting, and bring up, one of the team members here, and this is what happened, or tell a story about, what I'm going through, or like involve them in the challenges. The office isn't too far from our house. So have them, we come to the office and we have candy jars here, and we have, fun, like speakers. They can come do karaoke, or just like things, get them swag, and so that they feel like this is a part of our family, and it means something. And so try and just involve them into my life beyond. And this is something I'm literally actively working on right now. I just found myself always saying, they would say, "How's your day?" And I would say, "It was good." And it was really busy. And that doesn't mean anything.
Totally.
That doesn't mean anything. And so I'm trying to get more specific and
That's awesome, man.
stuff like
That's
that.
cool. What else? And maybe that's the answer to my next question, or maybe there's something more, but I want to give you space to answer this. Is when you look at what happened in 2020 as a dad and as a business owner, and you look to 2021, what's one thing you'd like to make an improvement in when it comes to your family life?
Yeah, I mean, I think the individual time with each child is something I need to do better at. So with my son, it's easy, right? He's a ninth grader. He's the quarterback on the football team. I helped coach, and so, we spent a lot of time, and he goes and gets shots up, and I go rebound for him, and all that's easy with my son, right, at that time. But, with my daughters, where it's not revolving necessarily around sports, it is, how do I make time to be with them individually and make sure that they know how much I care. And the only way to show them that I care is that I spend time with them, or I have real conversations and with them. And so I think that's, with my son, it's when we have time, we needs to be more than just just shoot hoops, like we sometimes get into some deep conversations and talk. And he's not very good at that, and I'm not very good at it. But with my daughters, to be able to spend that one-on-one individual time, and it doesn't have to be long. It can be, go and get an ice cream or whatever. But that's something I definitely can be, would like to be better at.
Yeah. Hey, Brock, I want to thank you for the time today, man. Really honor your mission in life here to serve through Lendio, and also not compromise the success of your family along the way. I'm really grateful that you're committed to that mission, as many of the guys in Front Row Dads are. That's why we exist, to create an awareness and a consciousness around that, because it's too easy to just get sucked up into the business. It's too easy to play the excuse like, I'm providing for my family and I want to show my kids how to work hard. It's like, yeah, you should provide for your family. You should work hard. Just don't use it as an excuse to not get into the tough stuff at home too, and show up there for the people who really, really need you. And it feels like you're doing that. You're really showing up. So thanks, brother. Anything you want to say before we go? I know we got like 2 minutes before you got to get on to your next thing.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying I'm striving, but as I said right from the get-go, I just love your mission. I love what you're doing. I love the conversations you're having. It deserves to exist. It makes us better, and so it's a real pleasure for me to be on the podcast, and I'm looking forward to continuing to listen in and hear some of the other conversations and learning from others, because it's all about learning from each other about and getting better. So thank you.
Yeah. And of course, and if you would, maybe like a 30-second, 60-second, just direction about Lendio. Because look, we have small business owners, we have entrepreneurs, we have big business owners in Front Row Dads. And if somebody's saying, wait a minute, so Lendio, all right, how do I get cash? Right? Like, what do I do, John? You missed the best part.
Right.
Not true, but like, give us the 60 seconds on Lendio of like, how does somebody identify? Like, is this something I need? And yeah, prop us up a little bit.
Yeah, think about, we're a marketplace for business loans, meaning we're not the lender ourselves. We have 300 lenders on our platform. And so you might use Kayak for flights, or Expedia for hotels, or Yelp for restaurants. You use Lendio for business loans. You come, fill out an application, and then comparison shop the loan offers. It's free for the business owner. We make our money from the lenders. We've helped fund over 220,000 businesses for about $10 billion of loans. And so growing, and just that is our mission, helping small business owners to fuel their American dream.
Brock, thanks again, man. Appreciate you. Look forward to more with you, and hopefully we'll catch some waves here in Austin when you get down and visit.
Yeah, man, let's do it. Thanks, John.